Good morning. Welcome to Greece, or more specifically, Tyros, on the southern coast of Arcadia in the Peloponnese. But I'm Andrew, and I live here in Greece. And I'm guilty because I spend a lot of my time on my channel selling Greece, talking about how wonderful it is, telling you how you should visit here, telling you where to go. And the reality is, Greece has some problems. It has a dark side. And that's what this video is about, because I think you, as a tourist, have a responsibility, and you should be informed before you come here as to what is going on and what you can do about it. Now, the last thing I want you to think I'm trying to do is put you off coming to Greece. Absolutely the opposite. Greece, in my opinion, is the absolute best destination in Europe for tourism. You get the weather, you get the islands, you get Athens, you get the history, you get the amazing culture and people, and you get the food. And frankly, there is nowhere else better in Europe. Tourism is incredibly important to the economy here as well. It accounts directly and indirectly for about 35% of Greece's total GDP. So I definitely want you to come. But as someone who spends a lot of my time selling the virtues of Greece and talking about what a wonderful place it is, how I enjoy living here, how the people are amazing, etc., I do feel I also have a responsibility to talk about some of the negative impacts of tourism here. And let's face it, it's a common problem being recognised globally now, that of tourism and the impact it has negatively, in some cases, on communities and the environment and people. So I just want to address those. Now, the first problem I want to address is really one of overinvestment by foreigners and indeed some local businesses in areas of Greece. When you come to Greece, you are welcomed with open arms. Be under no illusions, the Greeks are absolutely delighted to see and receive tourists. But you probably go to Athens, or perhaps you go to the islands, and central Athens in itself has become a bit of a problem for the locals because a lot of property there has been purchased for investment. AirBNBs, hotels, etc., but particularly foreign investment. People have had the opportunity to get golden visas here very cheaply, which provides them a route to effectively European residency and access. And in order to do so, they've been buying up properties in Athens, particularly central Athens, where it made sense to invest. And this has created a real problem for the locals, because not only have rents gone through the roof, but then there is now a real shortage of properties. And for locals in Athens, and in central Athens in particular, it has become almost impossible to rent and live there. It's the same in the islands, if I'm honest with you. When you go to the islands in the summer, they're incredibly busy. People have their holiday homes and so on. But again, for the locals, overinvestment in the islands has been a particular problem and made it very difficult for the locals to live there comfortably, to access goods at reasonable prices, and just to enjoy a reasonable quality of life. Now, in the islands, this has a particular knock-on effect, which you as tourists may have noticed. Apart from high prices, high food prices, etc., perhaps you've been walking down an alleyway and you've noticed a bit of a drainage smell, for example, or you've seen some rubbish on the street. The locals try their best to keep it to a minimum, but the reality is the infrastructure is not up to the numbers of tourists who are now visiting the islands, particularly places like Santorini and Mykonos. The drains aren't up to it, hence you smell them. The packaging and waste facilities for water management, for packaging waste, etc., are not developed enough, and there needs to be a change. There needs to be a way in which that can be improved and supported. So perhaps now there's a need for a balance to be struck. I avoid using the word over-tourism, although it's very popular at the moment. I don't believe there is over-tourism in Greece. I think Greece needs more tourism, but I think it needs it more evenly distributed across the country, and I hope that I and others who make videos about Greece are in some part contributing to that, because we're showing you that Greece is not just about Athens and the islands. You can get out of Greece into the mainland and explore places which warrant your time, and yet at the moment haven't been discovered by tourists. Now, in a recent national survey, 77% of Greeks questioned said that they felt that tourism was of immense benefit to this country, and I completely agree. I would never ever suggest that people shouldn't come here. As I said, I think it's the best place in Europe. But the survey also highlighted some concerns that people have on a national and local level. The first thing, I've already mentioned it, in some areas, sky-high rent and property prices. Now, this isn't solely driven by foreign direct investment, but it is an element of it. And I would not for a minute wish to discourage foreign direct investment. I just hope that it's distributed more evenly across the country in the future. The second was access to natural resources, water in particular, but also food prices and prices of goods, they are inevitably going up. Now, this isn't solely down to tourism. Clearly, it's a problem across Europe. The cost of living crisis is well known, but it is exacerbated in areas such as central Athens and the islands, where in particular in the summer, resources are in demand and they're in short supply. So what do people do? Quite rightly, you get surge pricing, but this also affects the locals, and it is a problem for the locals. It's also a reality that here in Greece, we are surrounded by amazing, fabulous history. Athens, for example, the Parthenon, we have ancient sites here, we have history all around us, and this is a responsibility that needs to be passed on to future generations. And again, it has to be managed in a way that allows that to happen, whilst allowing tourism and the Greeks of the current day to benefit from and explore and enjoy the culture of this place and what it has to offer. A balance has to be struck. So what can we as residents in Greece and you as visitors to Greece do to address this balance and to improve things going forward? Well, the first thing to say, as I've already mentioned in this video, is please continue to come to Greece. It is the best place in Europe. You will have an amazing holiday here. The Greeks will welcome you with open arms and you will go away with lasting memories. I can't stress that enough. Don't think, oh, we mustn't go to Greece because we're creating a problem, we're adding to the problem. No, you are the solution to the problem. But let's deal first of all with things like power. Power demands in the summer go through the roof. But fortunately, Greece is a natural resource. We have mountains here. We have consistent winds on the top of those mountains. We have very few trees which block those winds. We have 300 something days of sunshine a year. So when it comes to wind turbines and solar panels and so on, this country is naturally made for it. And the government has been investing heavily in these resources. Now, some people, I will accept, don't like them. Some people get very upset that we have these wind turbines on the skyline, on the top of mountains where they are optimized, and that some areas of the land are being covered with solar panels. But the alternative is to burn coal, to invest in nuclear. And I know which I would prefer. And these investments that the governments are making in power are very much addressing a problem that we've had for the last few years, which is in the summer, electricity shortages. Everyone turns the aircon on, the islands become full, Athens becomes packed, and it puts enormous demands on the infrastructure within this country. But it has been and continues to be addressed with investments in infrastructure, investments in renewables, and I think these are important and should be encouraged. One of the problems in Greece, as I mentioned, are house prices and in particular rental, and this is driven by the AirBNB effect. Now, it's not specifically Airbnb, although they have some responsibility, but the fact is that many properties, particularly around Athens and in the islands, are short-term rentals with high cost nightly rates. And this is a major issue for the government. So, and for the people, to be fair. So the government is now legislating. From 2025, there are some significant changes coming in to try and control and restrict further investment in Airbnbs, and quite rightly. They are banning, effectively, new Airbnbs in Athens from 2025 because they won't issue any more licenses. And this is the right thing to do. They are also encouraging people to convert short-term lets, Airbnbs, into longer-term lets by offering a 3-year income tax exemption for anyone who converts to a 3-year longer term let. This makes it slightly attractive. They're also introducing a number of punitive financial measures to try and make it less profitable for people, to reduce the investment in this easy money, which is not of benefit, if I'm really honest to you, to the Greek people. Many people who invest in these are foreigners, so the government is really cracking down on it. I think it's about time they do, and hopefully that will have an effect. Now they're going to review it in a year, and if it's not enough, they will make it more stringent. I am personally not a great fan of investing in property for financial return. I think you should invest in property for a home, and I don't believe it's right that people are able to take homes from people and make them into something which is purely for their own personal financial gain. Morally, I struggle with that. I'll be really honest with you. Future me here, I do think there are exceptions to this actually. When perhaps you're investing in a small community and you're bringing prosperity and money and economic opportunity to a community that otherwise might not be on the tourist trail, it makes a lot of sense. But if you're talking about central Athens now, or the major islands, I think it's had its day. It's completely different, in my opinion, to having a hotel or a homestay or something like that. These are businesses run by locals for the benefit of the business, of the local community. They employ people, they put money back into the community. When you buy an Airbnb, you invest in it, you have nothing to do with it, no one is employed to run it. It merely turns over money that goes into your pocket, and often, as in the case in Athens, people then fail to invest that back into the property or into the community, so the community itself and the building then declines. I'm not a great fan of it, I'm sorry. Now, there is a trend across Europe recently to start to charge more for tourism, and I would agree with this. I don't think cheap tourism is good. What you want is a tourism which offers value to the tourist and value to the local who is providing the experience and the services. And certainly in Italy, for example, in Venice, they've started to charge cruise ships per passenger an environmental fee, and the same in places like Barcelona in Spain. And we're going to start to see that from 2025 here in Greece. For example, cruise ships landing passengers in Santorini or Mykonos are going to have to pay a €20 per fee, sorry, €20 per fee charge, quite rightly, I think, because these huge ships discharge 3,000 people into the community and they add very little value or money into the tills. They'll eat on the ship, they'll sleep on the ship, they might buy a few trinkets and drinks, but the reality is, to the local community, cruise passengers are generally very low value visitors, and there needs to be an income generated from them. Other places in Greece are considering doing the same. For example, Nafplia, and I've heard also Athens might be doing it, and I think that's perfectly reasonable. Now, the German tourist body is up in arms because they're saying we've sold these holidays to next year and we're now going to be unprofitable because you're charging €20 per passenger to disembark them in the islands. Well, do something about it yourselves, because it's quite right, I think, that those who can afford to and wish to come here on holiday pay for the community to invest back into the infrastructure and the services and the support that they can offer those tourists in the future. Likewise, there's always been an environmental tourist tax which has been associated with hotels. You may not even know you pay it. It's typically between €0.50 or something. That is going up. It's going to be between €2 and €15 per night per person, depending on the class of hotel that you stay in. And again, I'm all in favour of this because it's a way of raising funds that can be then used to invest back into the services. In the islands, for example, waste disposal, the drainage, etc., to improve not only the lives of the locals, but also the lives and the experience of those tourists who are coming here in the first place. This isn't to say that the Greeks themselves are entirely blameless for this situation. Absolutely not. Part of the reason that the islands and Athens have become so expensive is because the Greeks who own the land and own the properties and are able to build and develop in these locations have been doing so and selling to the highest bidder. Well, it's classic capitalism, isn't it? You can hardly blame them for it. But what I'm hoping is that as these places become more expensive, people, particularly the foreign direct investors, the foreigners looking to buy property in Greece, look outside Athens, look outside the islands and believe and realise that places like the Peloponnese, places like Halkidiki, Saloniki, etc., offer the same experiences, the same benefits, and yet real value. And we start to see a more national distribution of this investment and this wealth, because I don't think FDI, foreign direct investment, should be curtailed or discouraged in Greece. I think it's a really important part of the economy, and the population of Greece is in decline. We're talking about a population which is 10 million people. As a comparison, we have 34 million tourists here a year, so you can see the impact that tourism has on the local population. But we have 10 million people, the population is in real decline, and one way to supplement that and to arrest that decline is to bring foreigners in. And let's face it, foreigners with money, that would be ideal for the economy. It's not a bad thing. If you're driving people out because of one situation and bringing them in for another, it's not the ideal situation, but it's better than just people leaving and the economy and the demographic suffering as a result. So the Greeks are not innocent in that. I would also say that, unfortunately, where you get money, you get crime. And there is something that was very, very well publicised last year called beach piracy. And the government has legislated and addressed this to an extent. But in the islands, particularly places like Mykonos, and I always refer to Mykonos as the mafia island, which is probably a bit extreme, I apologise. But the reality is, where you get lots of successful business, lots of foreign money, lots of tourists, there is going to be a criminal element. And last year there was a lot of negative publicity about beaches, public beaches, becoming closed by private enterprise. Literally, they would just put up a wall along the beach and start to charge people huge sums of money either to go in or to stay at an illegally built hotel. 5-star hotel, beautiful places, heavily invested. And the government had a real problem with this last year. And it became quite extreme. And this is where the darkness really of tourism comes from, because some people in the islands who tried to initially address this and bring it to sight were beaten badly, and in one case actually murdered. So, you know, it's indescribable how brutal that area of Greek tourism became. But the government has addressed it, and as a result this year you may have noticed there are less sunbeds on the beach. They are not as close to the water, provided they're following the rules, and that is all about ensuring public access to the beach and ensuring that people can enjoy the beach for a fair price if they wish to pay, but free if they wish not to pay, because it's quite right that public spaces are available for public access. However, all of that said, Greece is still an amazing place to live and to visit, and I do not wish in any way to leave this video on a negative message, because I'm talking about a very, very small minority section of the tourist business and the population. And the simple fact is that if you come here, you are going to come and have the best tourist experience you can in Europe. I just feel that it's worth having a conversation now about this, because I spend a lot of time waxing lyrical, rightly, about why you should come to Greece, why Greece is the best place in Europe, where you should go in Greece, how you should consider buying in Greece. But we also have to recognise that there are always negatives to every opportunity. And I think provided everyone comes in with their eyes open, understanding their own responsibilities and their own impacts and what they can do to mitigate those, then the world is going to be a better place in the future. And that's really what I want. You know, the Greeks love visitors. The Greeks genuinely love foreigners. I've experienced it myself. It's a fantastic place to live. I could not ask for any more. Yes, I have a Greek wife. That helps a little bit. But this country is beautiful. And I would encourage you to spend as much time as you can here, to explore it, to understand it, to enjoy the food, to meet with the people. And you will never, ever regret it. Just do it responsibly. So thank you very much for watching. If you've got to this point, different video for me. I can't always be 100% positive about everything, because as I said, not everything is always 100% positive. There are always two sides to every story. But this is Greece. This is where I live. This is where you should come on holiday and visit. I look forward to doing more videos for you soon. And I thank you for watching this one. Take care.